Hi guys, my name's Phil. I'm an Android developer at Rochdale, and I'm here today to talk about Android Auto and give you just sort of a introduction about what it is and how it works and how you can develop apps for it. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, but I pretty much just retweet Simpsons quotes. Every once in a while there's something about Android, but I just don't want to set any false expectations.
Sounds like a pretty solid feed.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah. I read it all the time. So what is Android Auto? So Android Auto was announced at Google I/O of 2014, I believe, and essentially it's a way to use your phone in a safe way while you're driving. And so I'm sure no one's going to admit it, but I'm sure everyone in this room has held their phone out while they're driving, and it's probably not something you should be doing. So what Android Auto does is it actually mirrors, you plug your phone into the car and it mirrors your phone's display into sort of just a head unit that's installed in the car, and it gives you lets you use your phone in sort of a limited functionality. So it lets you use navigation, it lets you listen to music, send messages, call someone, and do web searches if you want, which is kind of weird, but I mean, it's cool, I guess. So the whole point is to avoid this from happening, and that's a really old phone. But anyway, so in order to sort of get it up and running, there's a few basic requirements. One is that you have to have a phone running Android 5 or Lollipop or greater, which probably in this room that's not a big deal. Probably everybody does. And there's an Android Auto app that you download from the Play Store onto your phone. And then you need to have a car with a head unit in it that you can plug the phone into. There are certain cars that are now being manufactured with the head units inside. The 2015 Hyundai Sonata was the first one to actually have that. But there's a number of aftermarket head units that you can also get in and install as well. And what was announced at Google I/O this year was that starting in the latter part of this year, you won't actually need a head unit. You'll just be able to run Android Auto on your actual phone, which I mean I can't imagine people doing that. I mean you'd have to go in and turn on the app and all that kind of stuff. But it would basically let you have the same functionality, use your phone in a safe way, just without actually having to have a head unit with you. So this is kind of what it looks like. So this picture's a little bit old, but so basically what you have is a car with a head unit in it, and you can see that the guy's plugged his phone into the car. And so what Android Auto does is it renders your phone, puts it into auto mode, so you can't actually do anything on your phone as sort of a safety precaution. And it's sort of on the screen up there, it sort of gives you a series of cards, kind of like Google Now, that has a bunch of info that it sort of feels that you should have while you're driving. So, for example, it's got 34 minutes to LAX, it's got the weather in Los Angeles, that kind of thing. And so I've gone over some of this already, but basically the basic operation is you connect your phone to the car, the phone goes into auto mode where you can't really do much with it. The head unit displays a series of cards that gives you information that you're going to need. There is a little, most of the interaction with Android Auto is done through voice actions. So on the screen there's a little microphone button in the corner which you press and then you say whatever you're looking for, like navigate to home or send a message, whatever. Certain cars are also implementing it, with the microphone button on the steering wheel as well to do the same thing. And if you needed to, say, do something specific, they have what's called an activity bar, which is at the bottom, and that'd be the equivalent of like a launcher on your phone when you're using it traditionally. And so, looking at this picture again, you can see that the phone is in auto mode, so it's just got the Android Auto logo, and you can't really do much with it. We've got the cards on the screen. We've got the microphone in the top right corner. It's a little small, but it's I suppose big enough that you could kind of touch it with your finger while you're driving. And down over here, this bar right here is the activity bar, and so that's got the shortcuts to open specific functions. So from left to right, we have navigation, telephone, the circle is home, headphones is music, obviously, and on the right, it sort of looks like a little dial. And what that is if the head unit is integrated with your car so that it can give you information, stuff about like how you get health of your engine or what your gas level is, all that kind of stuff. From what I understand, that's not quite implemented yet in any cars, but that's what that button will be for at some point. So to give you sort of another idea of sort of how it looks, we can just walk through sort of the basic screens here. So when you first plug your phone in and start driving, this is what you're presented with. So you've got your home screen, which just basically has two screens of cards that it feels you're going to need, that you can scroll up and down with using the on the bar on the left. And so, for example, when I took this, I was listening to the Fragmented podcast. If there are any Android developers in here that don't listen to that, I recommend you do. There's a couple of me in this room who have been on it, and it's definitely a really helpful source of our good resource for sure. And then it's got a couple of information about directions on, if it's going to take me 16 minutes to get home, and if I press down here, scroll down, I see I have a recent call, I have a message from my friend Carl, and it's going to take me 27 minutes to get to my softball game. So if we kind of go left to right here, if we were to click on the navigation, or if we were to click on, say, one of these cards specifically, if I was actually to touch that, then you would get the screen on the right, which gives you sort of the traditional. I'm sure we've all used the navigation on our phones before, and so it gives you the traditional view, with the GPS or with the directions on how to get where you're going, and it speaks it out as well, obviously, just like your phone would, but it just goes through your car speakers. If we were to go into the audio section, we've got sort of a couple different screens that are happening. The first thing you'll get is a chooser up here on the left, where it goes through all the different audio apps that you have on your phone that have been programmed to work with Android Auto. So in this case, it'll ask me if I want to listen to music or listen to a baseball game or listen to a podcast. And so I pick the one I want, and it starts playing. And then you depending on which one you pick, you get these screens over here, which it's kind of a pretty self-explanatory. You've got the title of what you're listening to. You've got sort of the playback controls along the bottom. A pretty similar sort of experience for both apps. And this is something that you find out with Android Auto, is that the UI is actually controlled by the framework, by Android itself. So there's really no UI programming in Android Auto at all. You give it the information you give the screen the information that it needs to populate these fields, such as your app's title, what you're listening to, what background image you'd like to have, and Android Auto renders that itself. So this sort of creates a, more consistent experience through each different app that you're using. And it also, it's a way for Google to make sure that these things are done safely as well, because they put a lot of effort into making sure that these screens, there's not too much going on, it's not too distracting, you've got big touch targets, all that kind of stuff. When you're driving around and let's say you get a message, what'll happen is you'll actually get sort of a little heads-up notification that was introduced with Lollipop, and it'll stay there for a few seconds, and then it'll eventually, if you don't do anything with it, it'll disappear and sort of find a place into your list of cards that you have. If you were to actually touch it when it pops in, then it will actually just read out the message, and then you have the option to reply with your voice or listen to it again or whatever you want to do with it. And you'll notice that in the card as well, it's got a little sort of speaker beside there, so if you were to touch that message when it was in the list, it would play it out for you as well. So, everybody likes demos? So I'm running what's called the desktop head unit, or the head unit desktop head unit emulator, which is a way to sort of test your apps for Android Auto. Can I make this bigger? There we go. So I've got this running on my computer, and it's actually plugged into my phone. So this is what we're seeing on my phone right now. So it's telling me it's going to take me an hour and 17 minutes to get home. I've got a message from my friend Carl. And if I scroll down, oh, I see. Oh, never mind. So if I was to touch home, it would start navigation and tell me exactly it would give me directions on how to get home. The audio might be going through the HDMI, so that's why maybe we don't have auto. But anyway, so it's telling me to go along here. So sorry, my trackpad doesn't seem to want to work here. So yeah, I guess it's a little hard to see, but on my phone here, you see that we've kind of got into this auto mode, so I can't actually do anything. I can touch it all I want, but the nav bar's gone, the app or the notification drawer's gone, all that kind of stuff, and everything is just sort of mimicked here. So I've got a message here. If I touch it,
here's the message. What's with the M?
okay, so I asked him how's it going, and I wrote an M instead of a question mark. So he's asking me what's with the M. Yeah, so you press, that message would have come in, it would have kind of come along the top, you press the message, you respond. If I wanted to respond to it, I can go over here to click the microphone. I don't know why this is being so difficult. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Okay, anyway, I would click the microphone and it would, I could sort of speak out my reply. So, whatever I would say something like, I would say, text Carl, and it would say, okay, what's your message? And I would say, my message is, I like M's, and then that would be sent off. So if we kind of scroll along, there we go. So if we go into the phone, you can sort of see my list of recent phone calls. We go back to navigation. As I mentioned, if we go into music over here, just about ready to give up. So let me just try restarting it really quickly. Much better. Okay, so we click music. The last thing I was doing was listening to Pocket Cast, so that's the first thing that comes up. If I click it again, it gives me the chooser, which can let me choose something else if that's not what I really want to do. And then when I get back into here, obviously you just kind of click the play button, and it starts playing. We've got the overflow menu here, or I guess the slide out menu, whatever you want to call it, over here. And this actually gives you sort of a hierarchy option to let you go through the different, if you want to pick something from a playlist, if you want to just grab something from a source that's not readily available, then you can do that. And one thing about Android Auto is if you try to do too many things, it will stop you. And so, it's not stopping me. All right, I guess it's gonna let me live dangerously. But every action in Android Auto is supposed to take 6 steps or less. So if you do something that takes more than 6 steps, it actually won't let you go any further, and it will say you'll get a big toast that says, for your safety to continue, you need to pull over. So That was actually happening to me a little earlier. And I guess the other sort of neat thing is the voice actions. So as I mentioned, we kind of got we got the voice actions. So text Carl.
Text Carly, sure. What's the message?
I like M's.
Here's your text to Carly, I like him. If you want to send it or change it.
Send it.
Okay. Message sent.
So yeah, I've just sent a message to my friend Carl. It's gone through my phone is doing all the relaying. It's doing the actual message, but it's just been controlled through voice commands through Android Auto. Another one last thing I'll show you is just the navigation. So say you want to find some pizza or something like that, because I don't know good pizza places around here. Find a good pizza place. Oh, I crashed. All right, I broke it. Let's try that again. Find a pizza place.
Showing results for find the pizza place.
So I don't know, are any of these any good?
Yes.
Which one?
Yes. C.
C? All right, I'll go look for dinner afterwards. Yeah, so that is sort of that's sort of just a demo of Android Auto and how it works. It's pretty cool. It's yeah, it just sort of, as I mentioned a couple times, it just kind of lets you use the core functionality of your phone, hopefully in a safe manner. So, now that we've talked about what it is and how it works, we'll just talk quickly about how you actually develop some apps for it. And the shorter answer is that you don't. What you actually do is sort of similar to Chromecast and Android Wear, if anyone here has ever extended any of their existing apps to work on those platforms. You do the similar thing with Android Auto. So you've got an app, you want to extend it to Auto. You basically just take your existing app and add a few bits and pieces that will let Android Auto pick it up and get it working. Currently, you can only extend audio and messaging apps. So, if you can't play Angry Birds while you're driving or something like that. But if you've got a music player, or if you've written a WhatsApp competitor or something like that, then you can very easily extend it to Android Auto and do all the things that I was just showing you a couple minutes ago. Your app has to be targeting 21 plus, which is Lollipop and above. And as I mentioned before, there's almost no UI code. There's no layouts. There's nothing like that. You're basically just taking your existing app, adding some things into it, and it will get thrown onto Auto for you. So just very quickly, just give you a brief idea of how you actually let Android Auto know that your app is available for it. There's a couple of really quick steps. You create a config file where you specify in the automotive app, in an XML file in the automotive app element, you're just talking that I'm going to be using media and/or notification. Media is obviously for audio apps. Notification is for messaging apps. And then in the application tag in your manifest, you specify, you point to that XML file. And at this point now, Android Auto will recognize that your app is available and it is an option for either messaging or it will send in any notifications. So specifically, if we're going to talk about extending an audio app, there's actually no code in here, but there's some really good, if you're interested, all the details are on that link there. It's very handy, it's explained very well. Check it out. But the basic steps, so when I showed you before on the podcast app, when you sort of hit the side menu, there was, the menu came out and you were able to drill down into sort of a content hierarchy of all my podcast files. In order to do that, you have to extend what is called a media browser service, and when you do that, you define where your files are, what order you want them to be shown up in the menu. There's a couple of methods you override. There's a media root file or a method. There's an onload children method, and you just override these methods and specify exactly, sort of in a tree structure, where you want things to show up. And implementing the playback's also really easy. The system gives you callbacks, things like on play, on pause, on stop, etc. And when those come in, then it's up to you to control your audio app to say, okay, when the user presses on play, I'm going to start playing. Same with on pause and on stop. And you also have to register for voice actions. To, for example, start playing music, that sort of thing. And that is just done by registering an intent filter in your Android manifest file. As I mentioned, there's no real UI code, but what you did see was that those two audio apps looked a little different. They had different colors, they had different background images, all that kind of stuff. And so what you can do is you can do theming for your audio app. And so you can specify things like a color palette, your app's icon, what image you want to show up in the background while it's playing, that sort of thing. And you can specify all that in a styles file or in your styles file in a style, and again reference it in the manifest, and that's really all there is to it. And as I mentioned, a lot of really good, overwhelming info on the website, so check it out. Now, for doing messaging, it's a little different. As we've sort of seen, there's no actual, there's no home screen or anything like that for a messaging app. There's no way to go in and say, okay, read this specific message from your list of messages. The messages, all they do is when they come in, they're displayed to you, and then you have the option to respond to the notification. So how that works is, if anyone here has ever worked with Android Wear and used a Wear extender for your for any notification that comes in, it's the same sort of thing. It's just you're using a car extender. So basically, what you do is when your app generates a notification, you find that spot in your code. You add a car extender and a car extender object, and what that will do is it lets Android Auto know that it should display that notification on the screen, on the car screen. And then obviously when you play it, it'll read out the message. And the system will actually send intents that correspond to specific user actions, such as when the user presses on the notification, to mark it read, when the user responds to it, that sort of thing. And you can actually catch these in your app in a broadcast receiver. And so, let's say you respond to when you say you respond to a message, like I did a little earlier, an intent would be fired saying, okay, I respond to that message. Your broadcast receiver would catch it. It could parse out the response that was sent through my voice from the intent object, and you can pull that response out and then use your app to send it. So, and then just use the exact same code that you would normally when someone types out a message. And you do the same sort of thing to mark it as read, dismissing notifications, all that kind of stuff. So, that was just kind of a brief overview of how you actually write something for Android Auto. And now we can just quickly talk about how you test it and distributing it. So the desktop head unit, that's what I was just showing you a few minutes ago. So it's just part of the, if you go into the SDK manager in Android Studio, it's just an option to download. And it's a standalone thing, you download it, it's good to go. You have to do like a one-step in ADB before you actually get it working. But it's all there on the thing, it's just one line. And what this allows you to do is this actually allows you to test the auto functionality of your app. It requires a physical device, so as you saw, my actual phone was plugged in, so you can't use an emulator with an emulator. Like some Inception thing going on or something, I don't know. And it just uses your computer's microphone to do all the voice commands. So as you saw, that's what was happening there. And just down there at the bottom is a link for the installation instructions and just tips on how to use it. When you are actually ready to publish an app that is compatible with Android Auto, it has to pass the Auto App Quality Checklist, which is essentially, there's a link for it in there. I've just highlighted some of the things here, but it's essentially just a giant list of things that your app can't do. And if it does any of those things, then it's going to get rejected. So just some of the interesting ones, like, I mean, there's no ads, no animations, no games, nothing that's distracting in any way. It's supposed to just be really simple. See, this actually won't work with email, because I guess the theory is that email is a little too long-winded. It's a much more deeper conversation. So, yeah, so you won't actually find any email clients on Android Auto at this point. And then once you're ready to actually distribute it, all the apps get subject to an actual driver safety review. So someone actually reviews this personally, from what I understand. And this includes to app updates as well, not just when you're initially publishing it. If you fail, then you get an email with a list of deficiencies that you need to fix. And your app won't be published until you actually have a successful review. So this, I mean, if for example, like, you know, if you've got WhatsApp or something like that, you got to be really careful that you follow this checklist pretty closely. Otherwise, your update's not going to get published, and a billion people are going to be mad. And they recommend Google recommends using the alpha and beta channels in the Play Store for testing. So you can publish it, see if it passes the check, and then do all the testing, and then promote it once it's ready to go. So if you want to learn more, there's a lot of really good info. There's just a bunch of links here. The basic developer site. There's a dev bite on YouTube. It's a couple years old, but the information is still pretty relevant. They just recently released a Udacity course in Android Auto. I think it's about 6 hours, and it's free. It looks pretty helpful. We've got the Distribute to Android Auto, which is just talking about the checklist and all that kind of stuff. And Universal Music Player is just it's an app that was released by Google a year or so ago. It's just a sample music player that they've written, but it shows, I guess, sort of best practices and all that kind of stuff on how to extend an existing music app to Android Auto. It also does it for Wear, it does it for Chromecast, and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in any of those platforms, then yeah, the Universal Music Player is a good place to start and take a look and see what's involved in actually doing it. So yeah, so that's all I got. Thank you very much, and yeah, any questions?